Within this podcast series, we will be discussing and hoping to increase the awareness of gender equality in the Olympic Games. Episode 1 will cover the history of women throughout the Games. Episode 2 will cover gender roles within sports. And Episode 3 will discuss the current issues with endorsements and television of events. In our fourth episode, we will show an interview with a current Olympic participant in archery. To conclude, Episode 5 will wrap up the podcast series and discuss how sports help empower women today. Female athletes didn't always have the privileges they have today in the Olympics. During the 1896 Olympic Games, the role of women was believed to be limited to placing the laurel wreaths around the necks of the winners, and that a woman's greatest achievement was to encourage her son to excel. During the 19th century, doctors argued that the amount of energy women used on reproductive functions left them with minimal energy for physic, or intellectual endeavours. History was changed, and progress was made at the 1900 Olympics in Paris, when female athletes were allowed to compete for the first time, but only in gentle events such as croquet and tennis. Since this was the first time women were allowed to compete, there were only 19 female athletes. It wasn't until the 1924 Games in Paris that women broke the 100-person mark with a total of 136 participants, in comparison to the 2,954 men who competed. One of the 19 female participants was Charlotte Cooper from Great Britain, who became the first female Olympic champion in tennis singles.
The 1912 Games allowed women to progress even more when they were allowed to compete in swimming for the first time. There were two events for the women to compete in, and which were the 100-metre freestyle and the 4x100-metre freestyle relay. The 1928 Amsterdam Games made history for women athletes in track and field by opening to women for the first time. At these Games, Elizabeth Robinson from the United States became the first female gold medalist in track and field in the 100-metre race. It was also during the 1928 Olympics that the collapse of several runners of the 800-metre race resulted in declaring that the event was too dangerous for women and was therefore banned. Throughout the history of the Games, women faced times of scrutiny and doubt in their athletic abilities. In 1968, female athletes were subjected to having scrapings from their cheeks tested for male chromosomes to prove their gender because the International Olympic Committee was suspicious that the top female competitors were too good to be female. In 1972, Title IX of the Education Act helped decrease discrimination by stating that no person shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under the educational programs or activities receiving federal financial assistance. With the help of Title IX, women's events in the Olympic Games began to improve. Women's shooting events were included in the 1984 Games, and in the 1996 Atlanta Games, there were 26 sports and 97 events open to women. This was a major improvement, but there were still 163 events available for men. At the 2000 Sydney Games, there were nearly 2 female athletes to every 3 male athletes, and 40% of the events were open to women. Sydney was the first time that women were allowed to compete in weightlifting as well as water polo. Also, the 2000 Games were the first time women were no longer required to prove their gender. London's 2012 Games will bring another first for female events in the Olympics by offering women's boxing for the first time. Throughout history, women athletes have overcome obstacles and progressed towards equality, but still don't share the same privileges as male athletes. The next episode will discuss gender-dominated sports, with an emphasis on the ski jump event.